Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, June 18th, 2020. I hereby call to order this public hearing meeting held by the Public Safety Standing Committee of the Bloomington City Common Council. My name is Jim Sims, and I'm the chair of this Public Safety Committee, and the member makeups include Councilmember Susan Sandberg, Councilmember Sue Scamboluri, and Councilmember Isabel Piedmont Smith. There will be an opportunity for closing comments from each member at the end of this meeting. Need to get back on. Okay. I'd like to present an opening statement as we get going. First of all, I'd like to recognize and acknowledge the death of Mr. George Floyd and announce that it is very disturbing, as well as all the other deaths of Black men across this nation. We are also concerned about the excessive force that is used by law enforcement, and I offer my sympathy to the Floyd family and all the other families who have suffered. I want to thank everyone who is participating and contributing tonight. We are here to listen to you, the public. In this first Public Safety Committee meeting, the public input we receive tonight and any subsequent public hearings could be used as a basis for considering changes in city policies that could lead to addressing systemic racial issues related to city law enforcement operations. I believe that to solve a problem, the first step is to truly admit that there is a problem. We on this committee and on the city council admit there is and has been historically a racial justice and equity problem across America, including in law enforcement agencies and operations, specifically with Black and brown people in this country. We also admit that a deeper look into the local law enforcement operations is warranted. We just know that tonight we are here and we need to listen. We need to hear from you, the public. Now, the purpose of this meeting tonight is, again, to receive input and comments from the public. There will likely be additional hearings seeking public input moving forward. And I think with a bit of housekeeping, we'll make an announcement on the procedures for tonight's public comments. During the course of the meeting, and when not actively making a comment, members of the public will have both audio and video disabled. When the chair calls for public comment, citizens will be allowed to make 1 2-minute comment on the topic of city policing. The public comment portion of the meeting will proceed as follows. Members of the public wishing to speak during public comment should use the raise hand feature in Zoom. So please leave your hand raised until the meeting host calls on you to comment. The meeting host will explain how to access the raised hand feature. When a member of the public is called upon to speak, the meeting host will enable audio only during the individual's comment, then disable audio when the comment is over. Video will be disabled for all individuals making public comments. We ask that all speakers should state their name for the record. Before we get started, Mr. Steve Boland, Councilmember Steve Boland, has volunteered to be our timekeeper tonight. Steve, can you go over that briefly for our public?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I've set up a 2-minute timer. It works like this. You'll have 1:45 to speak before you'll hear a gong. That means you have 15 seconds to wrap up your comment. Please note that the large time indicates what period you're in. The small time at the top is how much total time you have. At the end of 2 minutes, you'll hear a set of 3 beeps 3 times. That is your signal to end speaking. I'll be doing my best to give everyone, I'll begin the timer when the person states their full name.
Thank you. And I will share with the public that on this Zoom platform, we have no way of knowing which order in which you will raise your hand in order to speak. But we will try to get to everyone that is willing and wanting to speak this evening. This committee, however, has set an ending time for 2 hours. So we plan to end at 9 p.m. And we'll see how that goes. Any comments from anyone on the committee before we get started?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lucas, can we recognize the first person you've identified?
Sure, and for those members of the public wishing to make a comment, you can do so by clicking the raise hand feature. If you aren't sure where to find that, you should be able to click participants near the bottom of your screen that pulls up the sidebar. And if you don't see the raise hand function at the bottom of that sidebar, I believe there's a button to select more that then allows you to raise your hand. So for any folks that know that they'd like to make a comment tonight, you can start selecting that raise hand function and we'll get you queued up and ready to go. And if you're not able to find that raise hand function, you can also send a chat to the meeting host to let me know that you'd like to make a comment. And I'm not seeing anyone jump up and down yet. I don't know if
I'm not seeing any raised hands, and I'm wondering if people somehow don't have access to that function. Because it doesn't seem right to have no hands raised. Are you getting anything in chat?
No. Let me.
Oh wait, I see a raised hand.
Sure. So B Square Beacon should be unmuted and ready to comment.
I was simply testing out the raise hand feature to make sure that it was working, and it appears to be so. It was not that I wanted to make a comment, so that technical hurdle is clearly not standing in the way of any. Well, didn't stand in the way for me.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Again, if there are members of the public that wish to make a comment on the issue of city policing, which is what this meeting is the purpose of this meeting, you're welcome to raise your hand now to do that. I do have a chat from Casey. And as she's Casey Mama, and apologies if I pronounce folks' names wrong, I'll do my best, but as she's making her comment, I will try to send some instructions over the chat to tell folks how they can use the raise hand function. So Casey, you should be unmuted and ready to go.
Thank you. My name is actually Rachel Rosalina. Casey is my husband, and I'm using his computer.
Sure.
Like I said, my name is Rachel Rosalina, and I've read the statement about the steps that BPD has already taken, and I appreciate those steps, but I also think there are more steps to take. First, we absolutely need to get rid of the Bearcat, and we need to completely demilitarize our police force. And beyond that, I think on our way to true reform, true abolition, we need to follow San Francisco's lead and move all non-criminal calls away from the police. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more, Mr. Lucas, that you can see?
Next up, I've got a chat from Colleen Sutton. I'm not sure if.
Hi.
Hi, Colleen. Go ahead. I'm gonna have video disabled for all the members of the public, but you're welcome to go ahead and make a comment.
Sure.
Hello.
My name is Colleen Sutton. I both personally believe that we need to not only defund the police, but see what local organizations we already have around Bloomington that are working to address the underlying issues that cause people to call the police. clearly our situation with homelessness is different than some surrounding areas. And because we already have services in place, I would really like to see us fund those services and address the issues more at the root cause. In addition to that, my partner and I own and run a business in downtown, and it is a problem every time we have an issue at our business. We run a bar, whether we call the police or not, because calling the police inevitably means our staff is taken away from their work and we lose business because people leave. So this isn't just an individual issue. It also could sincerely help our downtown businesses to have other options. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sutton. Do we have any more, Mr. Lucas?
I just sent a chat to the meeting participants again. There should be a participants button near the bottom of your screen. And if you select that button, I believe it brings up a sidebar. Depending on what device you're on, it may or may not have that raise hand function immediately visible. If you see it, you can just click it. If you don't see it, I believe there are 3 dots to select more options, and you should be able to select it from there. And I do see our next commenter, Gabby, who should be unmuted and ready to comment.
Wonderful. My name's Gabby Graziano. I first want to thank those of you on the council who have spoken out against the murder of George Floyd and who have affirmed that Black Lives Matter. I think it's easy to think of Bloomington as our own quote unquote liberal bubble and think that these kind of instances don't happen here, but that's not true. One case involves a young IU student named Joseph Smedley. Some of you may be familiar with that name. Joseph was a Black student who went missing in September 2015. His body was found 1 week later in Griffey Lake, and despite the very questionable circumstances surrounding his death, including a note that did not match his handwriting whatsoever, BPD ruled his death as suicide. I have no doubt that if Joseph was not Black, that the investigation would have played out differently. And since Joseph's death, his sister Vivian has been fighting to reopen the investigation, trying to find any kind of justice for her brother. Vivian recently created a petition on change.org, and that petition now has over 50,000 signatures. So tonight I'm asking the council to use their clout to urge the Bloomington Police Department to reopen the investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graziano.
For anybody unable to find the raise hand feature, you can simply send a chat to the meeting host and let me know that you'd like to comment that way. You can chat by selecting the chat button at the bottom of your screen. I believe all messages will go to the meeting host, but you can let us know that way.
Okay, I believe we have 2 that have just raised their hands. Mr. Lucas.
Yes. First up, we've got Christopher, who should be unmuted and ready to go.
Hi there. My name is actually Peter Ruiz. I'm using my partner's Zoom to speak to you all. The first thing that I would like to state is that abolition is the only route towards racial justice when it comes to policing. As we have seen across the nation, when we try to reform the police, all that happens is that more funding ends up in their hands, more policing ends up happening, and more disproportionately communities of color are over-policed, but when we add more reforms. As we look to San Francisco as a model, and as we recognize the fact that our community has organizations in place that are underfunded, but are currently doing work that the police are unable to do, we need to seek ways in which our community can actually send that money their way, whether that is selling our beer cat and providing more funding towards actually housing our homeless, or providing a structure in which when Shalom seeks to pay the rent for homeless folks, these folks are not denied the housing because renters won't rent to them, even though there is a guarantee that that rent is being paid. Our issues are systemic. They come from a national history of policing, which is actually based from fugitive slave catching, and we have to acknowledge that and dismantle that in order to actually address the issues affecting Black and Brown people in all of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rubas.
Next up, we've got Margaret. And again, apologies if you're logged in on a different name. I'm just calling on you based on your screen name here. So you should be unmuted and ready to go.
Sure. Yeah, I go by Maggie. My name is Maggie Bott. I am a law student here at IU, but I'm also a volunteer with New Leaf New Life and have been for a couple years now. And I've also been privileged to write and visit incarcerated folks in Terre Haute at that federal prison. So I have a lot of experience with people facing incarceration. And at the local level, the most people that I meet with in the jail, they are just simply punished for being poor and facing mental illness, especially addiction. I don't think I've never been scared of anybody in the local jail. That includes both men and women. I've had really fantastic experiences in the jail working with the incarcerated folks. And I just feel so saddened that we have this horrible system that is just beating them down time and time again. It feels almost like a game to our local law enforcement to lock them up. And there are no resources for them to get the help that they need. We have these different courts, such as drug court, but it seems to just be failing time and time again. Are people who are facing a horrible addiction. So I just want to humanize the problems that our local law enforcement are causing, and the pain and trauma that they are causing so many of our citizens that we should really care about, and we should take all the money away from our law enforcement and reinvest that in our citizens and the real people.
Thank you, Ms. Bott.
And next up, I'm just going to read your screen name here. A. Ang at iu.edu should be unmuted and ready to comment.
Hi.
I'm Miss Ang. You have 2 minutes, please. How are you?
Hello. Hey, Jim. Yeah, I'm Abby. I couldn't figure out how to rename myself from here. Wanted to echo a lot of what has already been said. I'm glad to be here in this meeting. And I'm kind of speaking from the perspective of doing mutual aid, and a lot of the issues that we're seeing in the mutual aid group is people who are desperately trying to find housing, and working with agencies like Shalom, where they have the money to pay rent, and the housing market is so the housing market locally is so insane in Bloomington that it's almost impossible for them to find a rent. Even for people who are on Section 8 housing, it's close to impossible for them to find something even once they get approved. And like, these are just parts of the issues that that we're dealing with here that I'm hoping we can find a solution to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ang.
And next up, we've got another email address, switham at iu.edu. Again, apologies, I'll just read your screen names here, which, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sierra Witham. I'm also a volunteer with New Leaf New Life, and I'd like to lift up a demand by one of my favorite prison abolitionists, who I know is also respected by other volunteers at New Leaf New Life. Her name's Miriam Kaba, and she wrote a New York Times opinion piece recently in which she advocated for this demand. I'm going to read it. Regardless of your view on police power, whether you want to get rid of the police or simply to make them less violent, here's an immediate demand we can all make. Cut the number of police in half and cut their budget in half. Fewer police officers equals fewer opportunities for them to brutalize and kill people. This idea is gaining traction in Minneapolis, Dallas, Los Angeles, and other cities. And with the money that would be saved from cutting the Bloomington Police Department in half, I would recommend giving more money to Middleway House, whose prevention program I respect deeply. I think they're doing great work at helping kids and adults understand how to avoid interpersonal harm. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we've still got folks joining the meeting. I don't see anybody else queued up at the moment, so maybe now would be a good time to remind folks how they can request to comment. You can use either the raise hand function by selecting participants at the bottom of the screen and then selecting the raise hand button within the sidebar. If you're not able to find that, simply type a message into chat and let me know that you'd like to make a comment, and I will call on you that way. I do see someone who has requested to comment. So Bill Baus should be unmuted and ready to go.
Hi, I'm Bill Baus, live on West 8th Street in the near West Side neighborhood, and I'm a longtime board member of the Neighborhood Association. And these are my comments, nothing official from the association. With one exception, almost over 40 years ago, my interactions with the Bloomington Police have been rather positive, mostly very positive. The main interaction, and this is going to go against the grain of some of the commenters here, is that we have vagrants camping here in our neighborhood, sometimes on my property, sometimes on nearby properties, and they totally trash the area that they're doing this in. And the police have been very good about coming and politely, I think, requesting them to move, which they do for a while and then come back. I wish I could get paid for all the effort I put into cleaning up the mess these people have left behind. However, I would like to think that our local police are much better than nationally as far as excessive use of violence and particularly against Black people. And I know this is a national problem. However, over 40 years ago, I was attacked by a Bloomington police officer and injured in the process, and I was not doing anything illegal or improper at all at the time this happened. I know this does happen. It's happened to me, and incidentally, I am not Black, and so that was not the reason I was attacked. But it does happen, and we should be aware of it and be careful.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Baus. Your time is up. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Lucas.
Next up, we've got Ame Jocelyn, who should be unmuted and ready to comment.
Hi.
Hello, Ame. Hello.
Hi. My name is Ame Jocelyn, and I just wanted to share another function that the police do in our community, and that is during working with Department of Child Services during removals of children. Many of the calls that Department of Child Services will get are due to arrests, sometimes for substance use or warrants, which requires the Department of Child Services to remove children from their parents. As those parents sit in jail and are unable to pay the bail to get out of jail, the children continue to stay in foster homes, group homes, and other traumatizing experiences. When they're removed from their parents, a police officer is there, which further traumatizes these children as well. So in those instances, again, the police are harming and removing and disrupting family life and causing more of this disruption that does result in homelessness, in children being separated from their parents for long term. And I agree with many of my community members that we should be reallocating the funds that are currently going, I think it's 17 million something, to the police, to other agencies in our community that are actually designed to support, help, and nurture families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jocelyn.
Next up, we've got Abby, who should be unmuted and ready to go.
Hi, my name is Abby Troughton, and I am a teacher in Bloomington. And I just want to speak to some of the experiences that I know that a lot of my students and families have had, particularly in regards to the Bloomington police. I mean, obviously I can't break confidentiality, but what I can tell you is that I have never heard a positive story about any of my family's interactions with the Bloomington Police Department. And I think what you guys really need to be looking at here is how are we going to meet the people of Bloomington's needs? Because that's really the issue that abolitionists are calling for when they say that they want the police defunded. We want to see people's needs being met. And I can tell you based on my own experiences, working with housing in Bloomington and working with the poor families of Bloomington, we are failing our people. And I think the first thing that we can do is reopen Joseph Smedley's case and take a look at, what is our police department doing? What is actually their function? And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abby.
Next up, we've got Marcella, who should be unmuted and ready to go.
I'm gonna close. Hi, my name's actually Miranda Ettinger. I'm sharing my sister's Zoom. As part of my job, I work with many people who are currently incarcerated or were formerly incarcerated. I see so many folks who are stuck in the legal system, and most are either people of color or people living in extreme poverty. The effects on these individuals and their families are detrimental. They lose their jobs, homes, and children while they are incarcerated. When they are released, there are not enough options and resources, and they often return to jail on technicalities like missing a probation meeting. Many people get stuck in this terrible cycle. The most devastating part is that most folks who are in Monroe County Jail, they're there for misdemeanors that are usually linked to substance abuse or mental health. Our community members deserve so much better than to be incarcerated. Our community members deserve high quality health care, including mental health care and substance use treatment. Our community needs access to affordable childcare, safe housing, and more educational opportunities. I believe we should be diverting funds from the police, investing in our community in ways that uplift marginalized folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcella.
Next up, we've got Sheri, who should be unmuted and ready to comment.
Hello, Sheri, are you ready?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So I think police are just doing too much. They've been given too many things to do. They're not adequately trained, so they can't really be effective. So I think looking at it, how do we take things away from them, like the problems with mental health, addictions, homelessness, all of these things, and transfer them to other agencies. So I would like the city to work with our local agencies to see in what ways could we do this so that it would free them up. And also, I think a lot of the comments that have been made about the jail, which is a whole other issue because of laws, but we need to look at that too. So I agree totally that And I'm glad the city's looking at this as how can we reallocate funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheri.
Don't see anybody else lined up to comment at the moment. We have had some new folks join the meeting. So maybe I'll just remind folks how they can request a comment. You can either use the raise hand function, which is accessible by clicking the participants button at the bottom of your screen. And then it should either be visible on that sidebar that pops up, or you may have to select the more button to find the raise hand function. If all that fails and you can't find it, simply type into chat to the meeting host that you'd like to make a comment, and I can recognize you that way. I want to give it a few moments for folks to do that. So next up, we've got Kalei Sabaratnam, and again, apologies if I mispronounce your name. I will do my best, but you should be unmuted and ready to go.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name's Kalei. I am a teacher in Bloomington, and I think I've lived here for 8 years. This language around Bloomington being an oasis is really interesting, because I think if Bloomington is an oasis, I'm wondering why we have people that are experiencing homelessness, or why people who are in encampments are being urged out of them by the local police department or the sheriff's department. And if Bloomington really is an oasis, then how come we have an all-white farmers market coalition allowing Nazis to remain in our local food movement? I think the reality of Bloomington being an oasis is that if we don't have such a need for police beyond removing houseless people and causing childhood trauma, I don't really understand why we don't just get rid of those jobs, or like Sierra said, maybe half of those jobs, and put that money and effort towards solving the bigger problems that we know we're facing. I also think we can look at, there's 15 school resource officers and security guards in MCCSC schools. Let's get the cops out of the schools. And I think the reality of what COVID-19 has shown us is that the mutual aid networks that can pop up in Bloomington that people have organized using labor.
Sounds like we lost her.
Kalei, are you still there? Oh, I'm not sure if she dropped out. Well, if she reconnects, oh, let's see. Sorry, Kalei, I don't know if you got to finish your comment. I've unmuted you again in case you had any. Okay. Next up, we've got Bridget, who should be ready to go.
Hello, my name is Bridget Dunklau, and I would just like to take a second to reflect on a lot of the things that other community members have been talking about. I think the council and BPD should respect the demand from Black Lives Matter Bloomington to sell the Bearcat and use those funds specifically for community resources. I also think that BPD should open the Joseph Smedley case, and I would also like to just reflect on a 1990 study done by the National Center for Women in Policing that talks about 40% of families of police officers experiencing domestic abuse. So with this conversation of abolishing the police and building more community resources, I think it's important to look at how we hire people to serve the community, and because hiring abusers to serve our community just abets abuse. So I think it needs to be taken into consideration who we're hiring to take care of our community and take care of the people who are here. And yeah, Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Dunklau. Who do we have next, Mr. Lucas?
I don't see anybody else lined up to speak at the moment. Give me just a second. It sounds like there may be some messages going to the clerk's office. I don't know if they'd like to read what they've received.
Yes. Jada B from Black Lives Matter B-Town would like to say that she wishes to defund the cops and to pay Black Lives Matter and to give them anti-racist training, to listen to them, and for policy.
And I have seen some new folks hop onto the meeting. If you'd like to make a comment, it sounds like some folks have found the raise hand function, but it might also be easier to just type into the chat and direct that chat to the meeting host, and I can recognize you that way. I do think, sorry, I'm getting all the folks joining the meeting. Kalei, I think, would like to try to finish her comment when she dropped out earlier with the audio issues. So you should be unmuted and ready to finish your comment.
Thank you. I don't know where you stopped hearing me. Can you tell me what you stopped? Where I stopped?
Somewhere near get cops out of schools.
Okay.
I'm
great.
sorry.
No. That is probably literally what I said. I think I just wanted to stress that there's a lot of mutual aid networks that have popped up because of the pandemic, and folks are doing that work without being paid. And they're doing the work of taking care of each other, feeding each other, housing each other, bringing people to healthcare appointments. I think that labor is better and more important for us to be stronger. And I think it addresses things before they become symptoms. It addresses the causes of why people get jailed. So I don't think that we need the police if we are supposed to be an oasis. I don't think anywhere needs the police, but particularly, we should defund and abolish them.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else, Stephen? If it's okay, I think I'll just remind the public that they can use the, at the bottom of the page on Zoom, you can use the participants button in order to raise your hand, or you could send a message through chat to our meeting host in order to be recognized. There's also instructions in the chat function with explaining how to do that.
And perhaps this would be a good time to remind folks how they could send a written comment outside of this meeting. Members of the public are always welcome to contact council members or the council office via email. Our email address is council@bloomington.in.gov. Council members have individual email addresses that are available on our website. So you're welcome to send any thoughts or comments in that way as well. And we do have a request to speak from Chaz Gillespie, and you should be unmuted and ready to go.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Mr. Gillespie. You have 2 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you for hosting this meeting, and thank you to you all for inviting me. Regarding concrete steps, I would like to see members of this committee take before our city's budget meeting in August. Number one, I would like a full audit of the Bloomington Police Department, both how they spend their money and how they spend their time. For instance, how much money exactly do they spend on uniforms, and how does this compare to the city's other social improvement efforts? How much time are they spending on disciplining our unhoused population, for example, moving them from one place to another? And how might these resources be directed to social services? Number two, I want a full audit of all training that Bloomington Police receive and what the minimum amount of training they receive is before they are handed a badge and a gun. Three, I want a full accounting of why our Black population is overrepresented in our jail by 400%. Number four, I want to know what you specifically, members of this committee and members of the City Council, are doing to reach out to Black and Brown residents of our city, specifically to make sure that their concerns are being heard on a regular basis. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Gillespie.
And I believe we've got Marcella up again, although we should reiterate that speakers are limited to one comment per person. I'm not sure with screen names as they are, whether this is the same Marcella we heard from earlier. So I'll go ahead and unmute Marcella. Again, if you've already made a comment, speakers are limited to one comment per in this meeting.
Yeah, it was my sister who spoke earlier. We're sharing a computer right now just to save bandwidth and whatnot. So hi, I'm Marcella. My sister Miranda spoke earlier. I'm an early childhood educator who has worked with children who have been experienced trauma for 7 years in this community. Many of these children have been extremely traumatized by experiences involving the police, from domestic violence to substance abuse to mental illness and poverty. Spoiler alert, these children are not better off after these experiences with the police. They're not. They really aren't. The police are not essential to this community, and they do not protect and serve this community. They actually cause more harm to children and their families. Thank you, Black Lives Matter, and abolish the police.
Thank you, Marcella, for your comments. See anyone else, Mr. Lucas? No.
Not at the moment. I have had a few new folks jump in. So, well, as I say that, we now have Debra Morrow, who should be unmuted and ready to comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Morrow.
Hi, I'm Debra Morrow, the director at Middleway House. And I will start off by saying that we do work with clients who choose to work with the police when they experience domestic violence and sexual assault, and some of them do have positive experiences. But I also must state that we do work with some who don't want to work with the police. And that is because of multiple experiences that they've had in their life that make them feel extra vulnerable. We always respect their decisions, and we do recognize that people of color often are less apt to work with the police. I echo so many of the words that have been said by others about the jail and the folks that are in jail. I also monitor a local batterers intervention program and speak to the men who are participants in the POPS program. One thing that I recognize is how important prevention education is. We can do crisis work forever, folks, but if we can get ahead of it with prevention, that's going to make a huge difference. I also think that it is so important that we listen to the people in the community, that we listen also, especially to those who are voices of color. We don't need to just listen to them. We need to hear them, and we need to believe them. I also want to point out that the homeless folks are our neighbors. They're not just an inconvenience to the community. We have an obligation to our neighbors. And I believe that as a community, we need to see ourselves as a work in progress that is always trying to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow. You had 15 seconds left if you still had more.
No, that's fine. Just let's see ourselves as a work in progress and see what we can do to improve.
Thank you for your comments.
For anybody who has just joined the meeting, if you'd like to make a comment, you can use the raise hand function on this participant sidebar, which you access by clicking participants at the bottom of your screen, or you can simply type a message into chat to the meeting host to let us know that you'd like to make a comment, and we'll recognize you that way. I do see Maria Perez has indicated they'd like to speak, so you should be unmuted and ready to go.
Everyone.
Hello, Ms. Perez. How are you?
I'm doing well. I would just like to thank the committee for hosting this very important meeting about what to do about the police. I think a lot of the other people on this and the participant list have already stated the very important reasons why we need to defund the police and redirect resources to help some of the root problems of why people think that the police is necessary. For example, more affordable housing, addressing our unhoused population, more mental health resources, and the list can go on and on. But I just wanted to talk on a more personal level as a woman of color living in Bloomington. It's for me. I often think, what would I do if somebody broke into my house? My partner is Afro Latino, and he's pretty big. So I always think, what can I do if somebody is breaking into my home? Who should I call? I don't want to call the police. What if the police come and think that he's the intruder? I know that the committee here is, I believe, all white or mostly white, but these are the kind of questions that a lot of people of color are thinking on a constant basis. What do I do? Because if somebody is attacking me or breaking into my home, what options do we have? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez, for your comments. See anyone else, Mr. Lucas? No. Well, while we're waiting, and I see that we have several people that at least are participating, I stated earlier, one of the reasons that we have convened this evening, because we want to hear comments. We want to hear from the public as we move forward with our deliberations and our discussions, in particular with budget time coming up and some of the other issues that we can work with. The best place to start and what you have to work with is with comments from the public. So feel free to share with us your thoughts, your concerns. We're here to listen. So thank you all.
I don't see anybody else who's lined up to speak at the moment. Again, for any folks that have just joined us, you can request to speak by using the raise hand function or by typing a message into chat to let the meeting host know that you'd like to comment, and we'll recognize you that way. I'm getting a question from someone who would like to know what's going to happen with these public comments and how they will be used to inform future decisions. I don't know if anybody on the committee would like to take that. I can let the public know that we're recording this meeting. We're keeping track of the comments, and we're going to make all of these suggestions and comments available to the members on this committee, as well as the full council and the administration if they'd like to have access to that. I'll let the committee take on the question of how that will inform any future decision making.
I think how you explained it is exactly right. This is the first initial meeting of this committee, of this standing committee. I anticipate that there will be more in the future. So it's really hard to be definitive on what we hear tonight, how it will be used and what effect it will have. I can assure you that all of us are listening and will be considered as we move forward in discussions, in particularly with policing.
Not seeing any additional, well, as I say that, Kalei, not sure how to pronounce that. I apologize, but you should be unmuted and ready to comment.
Hi there.
Hi, Kaela.
Hi, my name is Kaela Machin-Garvin. I live here in Bloomington. I just wanted to thank you for holding this meeting, but also to thank everyone who's shared their comments today. Particularly, I feel like I've learned a lot from the people working in the community who've shared their experiences and the experiences of the people they work with. I just want to sort of reiterate some of the points. Hearing the people who work in the community talk, sort of believe even more strongly that there's a need to sort of divest from the police and defund the police and funnel those resources back into the community. I want to sort of reiterate and uplift the demand or request demand to get rid of the Bearcat and invest those funds back into community programming such as mental health and addiction programming, mutual aid. I want to reiterate and uplift the demand to have cops out of schools, as well as to reopen the Joseph Smedley case and listen to the Black citizens here in Bloomington. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kayla. Appreciate your comments. Looks like we have 3 more, Mr. Lucas. 2 more, sorry.
Yes, next up should be Megan.
Hi, thanks for listening tonight. I have more of a process question for the board that maybe you guys can talk about at a later time. Many years ago, I worked in a job that had me collaborating with the police department. I had many good experiences and some not so great. And at the time, one of the policing departments I worked with, and I'm not talking about Bloomington Police, by the way, but another one. And I had put in 2 complaints about a particular officer for some incidents that happened. And I never heard back. I never heard anything that happened. And years later, that same officer was involved in a domestic violence incident. And I'm just curious, because does the Public Safety Board only hear about cases that are forwarded by the police chief? And, it seems like last time I checked that was the case. And so how do we create a system that, is more, I think, serves the public? Because it feels like I never heard back about my complaint, and I'm sure there are others that just never get seen by the board. So maybe that's something that you guys could address in a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And as we move forward, and I would like to remind the public that once you're recognized to please share with us who you are for the record, please.
Next up, apologies, I'm trying to answer some folks in chat. We've got Randy Paul, who should be unmuted and ready to comment.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can. How are you, Mr. Paul? You have 2 minutes, please.
Okay, thanks. I just want to mention, I've been trying to talk to a lot of people. I think a lot of the requests and concerns you're hearing are not likely to change much until we diversify the government that we have. And I think most people have to admit we have a primarily white government. I think we need diversity badly. And I just want to, since there's, I think, 80 people listening to this, there is time to run. I mean, I think people feel that the primary is over, now it's too late. You have until the end of the month to file as a write-in candidate. And I would urge anybody in the Black or brown community, if you've ever thought about running for office, I think now's the time to do it. And I've been involved in running campaigns for roughly 30 years. I know I would certainly volunteer to help somebody who wanted to run but felt they didn't have the experience of running a campaign. But I think the time has come that we need to start encouraging diversity in our government. And I hope people will step up before the end of the month and run as a write-in. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
I've seen a number of new meeting participants join us. So if anybody is joining to make a public comment, you can do that by using the raise hand function to let us know that you'd like to speak. You can click participants at the bottom of your screen. That should bring up a sidebar that's got a raise hand option, either immediately on the sidebar, or you may have to click the more options button. If that all fails and you can't find the raise hand feature, simply send a chat message to the meeting host and let us know that you'd like to comment, and we'll call on you that way. And I am getting some questions from Jana Arthur about how much training do the folks that work for the Sheriff's Department receive versus the Bloomington Police Department. She states, please defund the police and also demand the sale of the Bearcat, and has some questions that I'll respond to after the meeting today. But I don't know that the committee members are in a position to answer those training questions. We can, if anybody does have questions or comments, you are welcome to email those to the council office, and depending on what those questions are, those may take some more time to respond to. So I don't know if the committee wants to take any of that up, but I think the intent today is to receive public comment, to hear from members of the public who have thoughts or suggestions. So
I think you're absolutely correct. We're here to receive information this evening. In the future, there may be back and forth discussion, but what I would like to suggest with questions like that, and they will be addressed in the future, I'm sure, but the next time that, there was a Board of Public Safety, Bloomington Police Board of Public Safety meeting that was disrupted the other night, and many of the questions that you just mentioned could have been answered or addressed during that meeting. So I would be on the lookout for the next scheduled Board of Public Safety meeting, not to be confused with the Public Safety Standing Committee of the City Council. And I hope that helps.
we've got a question about where folks can see the meetings that are happening in the city. Perhaps I can pull up. Just give me a second. So for folks that would like to find out what public meetings are taking place, there is a sidebar on the main city website that lists all of the public meetings, and there's a calendar that should list all of those as well. So you can see dates, times, whether those are taking place in person or virtually. And if you have specific questions about when the next meeting of a particular board or commission is scheduled, I'd encourage you to just reach out to the contact person within the city. If you're not sure who that is, just call the city and they'll point you in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. And I do believe that the website address that'll get people there with the video you just showed or the picture you just showed is bloomington.in.gov.
Correct.
I do believe that'll get you there, bloomington.in.gov. Correct.
Right. Also getting a question about any folks who want to watch this video after the fact. It sounds like some folks are having audio issues on their computer. This meeting is being recorded by CATS. It should be available on the CATS website once they've had a chance to upload that. Eventually, it should also be available on YouTube, but for folks interested in watching it, keep a lookout on the CATS website. For any folks who have just joined the meeting who want to comment, not seeing anybody in line right now, you can let us know over chat that you'd like to speak, or you can use the raise hand function to let us know that way.
And while we're waiting, I'd like to share with the public that we are a standing committee of the City Council, and we will be discussing these, I'm sure, in the future with the full City Council along other council members as we move forward. Some of this may come up in budget discussions, some may come up in other avenues. But what's most important is the whole purpose of tonight is to receive information from the public that will help as we move forward. To me, as elected representatives, I think the most important thing is to hear from the citizens, from the community, and from our constituents on any issues that we can work with or toward.
I do see Tess Given has requested to comment. You should be ready to go.
Excellent. Hi. Hello. My name is Tess Given. I'm a current student at IU, and I've only lived in town for about a year, but I've been familiar with the town for most of my life. I'm in this meeting particularly to uplift the voices of BIPOC people in our community, particularly the voices of people from this meeting. I just want to voice my support as a community member for reopening the Joseph Smedley case, for getting rid of the Bearcat. I also would strongly urge y'all to consider defunding the police department and redirecting the money to community services that do not replicate the structure of the police department, but instead provide actual support for the community members who are most in need. I would also urge us to consider refusing to collaborate with ICE and to consider our role as or a potential role as a sanctuary city for undocumented people in the region. I would urge you all to listen to Black Lives Matter Bloomington, as well as other grassroots movements like Enough is Enough. I want to continue to push you all and us as a community to privatize the farmers market and stop passively sanctioning and supporting the presence of white supremacists in our community. And I would also urge us to find other ways, mostly through outreach, which I'm very grateful for this meeting, but find other ways of protecting vulnerable folks in our community, including sex workers and, again, undocumented folks in the region. And I would also urge other people in this meeting. I don't know exactly how municipal procedure works, but if it's helpful to hear more of our voices, it's really scary, but we can do it. Speak up. Thank you. That's all.
We have a request, let's see, from Keegan, who should be unmuted and ready to comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to add too much more. I just wanted to say I totally agree with everything that Tess just said. So I would just, want to second all of that, I think we really need to look at, where our funding is going and, and our overfunding of the police department. So, that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gulick.
And next up, we have, let's see, S-Barb. Guessing that's not your name. It's probably a username, but you should be unmuted and ready to go.
Hello, yes, my name is Samuel Barbash Riley. I'm a Monroe County resident, returned from college. I work as a social work therapist here. I've spent part of my life, about 2 years, also doing intensive case management with people experiencing homelessness. The reason I wanted to speak was just to echo a lot of what Tess and other people have said, and I can back it up in terms of anecdotal experience, seeing the effects that if we put our money into housing, into mental health, into substance use treatment, into mutual aid, rather than punishing people who are just trying to survive. I've seen it with my clients. When they actually get the support and care and compassion they need, they thrive, they give back to our communities. So I also encourage you, defund the police, put it in a place that's actually going to help our communities rather than harm them. Get rid of the Bearcat, again, put that money towards housing, towards something that's actually going to take care of our citizens. And also don't cooperate with ICE. So yes, I just wanted to echo a lot of what other people have said and say that my experience, backs up a lot of what's been said, that if we put our money into actually taking care of the people that we live with rather than treating them like criminals, we're going to see a lot better results and more efficient and more cost effective. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
I've seen a few new folks join the meeting since my last reminder, but if you're here to make a public comment, you can request to do so by using the raise hand function, which you can find by clicking participants at the bottom of your screen, or simply type a message into chat to let the meeting host know that you'd like to speak.
Okay, Mr. Lucas, if I may, while we're waiting, and again, we're here this evening to receive information from the public. There won't be a back and forth discussion per se. There is a question in the chat from a Mr. Christopher Simanton. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And I would suggest that that question be sent to either our council office to be distributed to council members or send it to individual city council members. Thank you. Don't want to not address it, but this is probably not the forum in which to do that this evening.
Okay, I see a request to speak from Daniel Bingham, who should be unmuted and ready to comment.
Hey, Mr. Bingham, thank you. You have 2 minutes, please.
Sorry, I'm scrambling a little bit. I almost forgot about this meeting. It was a long day. I wanted to urge the council to seriously consider fundamentally restructuring our police force. I think this is something we need to be considering across this country. I think we have now seen that policing as an institution is fundamentally broken and cannot be easily reformed. And I wanted to share some numbers both about the national police force, national policing and local policing. One thing to just recognize is that apart from policing having revealed itself as being a pretty violent and generally racist paramilitary institution, it's not effective. If you look at clearance rates, which are the rates at which arrests are made in cases, the national averages for violent crime is 45%. 55% of violent crime in this country goes unsolved. The police do not solve it. For property crimes, burglary, thievery, mugging, it's 17%. 83% of property crimes in this country go unsolved. These are the most fundamental pieces of the police's job, and they are catastrophically failing at them. It does not work. Other pieces of the police's job are things that have nothing to do with property or violent crime. I ran the numbers for the first quarter of 2020 for what the police in Bloomington spend their time doing. 30% of it is traffic stops. About 15 or 16% of it is what could be considered social work. About 10% of it is what could be considered basic dispute resolution. About 15 is property crime. About 10% is violent crime.
Oh, go ahead. You have about 15 seconds left, Mr. Bingham.
The point here is that we need to fundamentally reconsider how we deal with these problems, because the police are not solving the problems they're supposed to solve, and they are working on a lot of problems that they have zero expertise in solving at all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for your comments.
Next up, we've got Ellis Greer, who should be unmuted and ready to go.
Good evening. Hello, Ellis.
Hello, I would like to thank the council for having this meeting. I would like to echo a lot of what has already been said. I would like to remind everyone that the police function using mainly the threat of violence and the use of force to uphold the system of white supremacy and capitalism. I think it is unrealistic to think that we can ticket, arrest, abuse, and murder our way out of the homelessness and addiction crises Bloomington is experiencing. Mutual aid networks, the Middle Way House, and Shalom Community Center are doing much more to help members of our community experiencing need, and that's where a lot of our community resources should go. Joseph Smedley's case should be reopened. The Bearcat should be sold. Defund, disarm, and disarm the police. No exception.
Are you finished? Just to have some time.
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you for your comments.
So I've seen, again, more folks join the meeting. I apologize for repeating myself, but if anybody has just joined and would like to make a public comment, you can do so by either selecting the raise hand function, by clicking participants at the bottom of your screen, or just type a message into chat to the meeting host and let us know you'd like to speak that way. And I do have a message that someone would like to speak but needs a moment to collect their thoughts. So if anybody else is ready to go and knows they'd like to speak, you can indicate that now. Otherwise, we should give it a, oh, here we go. Nathan should be unmuted and ready to go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Nate? Yes, we can hear you. Can you identify yourself, your last name? Yeah. Don't want to mispronounce it.
No problem. Thank you. My name is Nathan Muchler. I'm a resident of Bloomington, Indiana. I apologize. I'm joining this meeting late, so I hope that I am not going to address anything that has already been over addressed or in conflict with anything that was previously said. But my challenge to Bloomington, to this organization, this body, and to all of us is to ask ourselves, if not now, when? Like many people, I'm frustrated and tired with seeing people killed, people gassed, people sprayed, people murdered, people choked, people knelt on for 8 minutes and 46 seconds across this country. And I hope to God it never happens in Bloomington. But I think it's a question of, I don't want it to become a question of when, not if. So my challenge to all of us is to find the moral clarity and the courage to say, we will not wait until we are forced to. We will not wait until we are shamed to. We will not wait until it becomes a necessity to make these changes, but rather we will do that today, now, so that we never have to put ourselves in that situation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, just since my last announcement, I've seen quite a few new folks join the meeting again. If you're here to make a public comment, you can either type into the chat and send that to the meeting host that you'd like to speak, or you can use the raise hand function to indicate you'd like to comment that way. And I do see Daniel Begum, although I believe he stated that somebody else is sharing that same computer and would also like to make a comment. So go ahead, you should be ready.
Hi, this is Teal Bingham. I'm married to Daniel Bingham. We're just on the same computer.
Sorry, thank you for joining us.
Yes. I want to add to the call to ask the council to seriously examine the structure of policing in Bloomington alongside countless councils and governments across the country that will be doing the same. I think a really important thing to think about is that even when we're doing our best, even when we have the best people being trained. They are operating within a system that's flawed. In Bloomington, we have a police chief who is seemingly very cooperative with a lot of people in the government. I know that he was on city council, that he is friendly with a lot of our government officials. I know that the police officers in Bloomington go through implicit bias training, more training that is required than is required by law. Yet we have higher racial disparity rates in arrests than Indianapolis and at times in Ferguson, Missouri. I don't have the stats in front of me right now, but that has been true historically. Our jail population is 15% Black, and our population of the town in general is less than 4% Black. I think that the things that Daniel was talking about, the statistics about what our police are actually doing and who could be doing those things more effectively, is a really important thing to take a look at. But I think we need to educate ourselves and spend time understanding the fundamental flaws that are in our policing system and coming to terms with the fact that Bloomington is not exempt from that just because we are somewhat liberal. It exists in all of us, even the best of us, and we need to focus on fixing that and creating a better system. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Bingham.
Don't see anyone else lined up at the moment. We might give it a few more seconds. I don't think I've seen any new folks join the meeting, but as a repeating reminder, if you'd like to comment, you can either use the raise hand feature or type a message into chat and send that to the meeting host to let us know you'd like to speak that way. And again, for any folks that would feel more comfortable submitting written comments or thoughts, you're welcome to email the council office. I sent out the council email address over chat, but for any folks watching at home, that's council@bloomington.in.gov. The contact information is on the city council website, and you're welcome to contact us with thoughts on these issues. I've not seen anyone else indicate that they'd like to comment. Oh, as I speak, I see Shelby Jade Hoshaw, who should be unmuted and ready to go.
Hello, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to talk a bit about and echo a lot of what everyone else is saying. I think in this conversation, it's really easy to say that policing in our country is broken. And I just want to talk about how it isn't. Police are meant or were created to protect property. And that begins with many forces being created to catch slaves. So I think in this moment, we have an amazing opportunity to reimagine our society. And that, for me, starts with defunding the police. In my personal experience, I have worked with as an advocate for people who are filing protective orders for domestic violence and sexual assault. And from my experience with police, like working firsthand with police and people who interact with the police, they do more harm than good when responding to domestic violence or sexual assault calls. Sometimes they have lied or spread misinformation to my clients. They are not informed about the processes and the opportunities and resources available to the people that they are serving, which I think is really wrong. And second, I think it's easy to think that training is a really good solution to this problem. And I just want to express my feelings that I don't believe it is. Training doesn't work. I have sat in with the Sheriff's Department through trainings about domestic violence, sexual assault, and all these intersections about sexuality and race and how that affects people and their view of policing and how they get and reach services. And honestly, the deputies, they did not care. They were laughing the whole time. And it was just really upsetting because these are the people who are going out and trying to, people are needing help, and these people are not responding and the training isn't working. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Fossall.
Not seeing anyone else in line at the moment, or any folks that have yet to make a comment and would like to. Now would be a good time to indicate that by either raising your hand in chat, using the raise hand function, or sending a chat. And I just received a message from Macy, who would like to comment and should be ready to do so.
I'd just like to reiterate a lot of what people have said about how I don't think we should be working with ICE. I think we should defund the police, and I don't think it should stop there. I think that should be a step towards abolition. And I've just echoed a lot of what people have said in this regard. And I also just want to say that being someone that's been to a couple of the meetings with the city council, my experience has been a lot of going to these, having a conversation, but it's even when it's presented as a conversation, it's like talking to a brick wall. And in an experience that I've had, it just doesn't, I don't feel very hopeful, but I just want to say that I hope y'all can convince me that these conversations are worth it, because that has not been my experience. And that's all I have to say right now. But also Joseph Smedley case needs to be reopened, re-examined, because that was not a suicide. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Macy, for your comments.
Next up, we have Merck, who should be unmuted and ready to go.
Hi, Mark, you're ready to go. Can you identify yourself for us, please?
Can you hear us?
Okay, maybe he'll come back, Stephen. Is he one of those two people that are waiting, or we have two more?
I'm not sure. We can circle back around once we sort out any audio issues. I see a request from Abby Eng, who should now be unmuted. I know a few folks have been using the same computer. I'll remind folks that they're limited to one comment during the meeting, but if you're sharing a computer, go right ahead.
Hi, so I really want to thank everyone who's been talking about the mutual aid network as something as a replacement for, or something that can help with the issues that the policing has been dealing with not as effectively. And to that end, I want to give an example of when the Bloomington Police Department in the early ages of mutual aid asked our mutual aid network for money. And so basically what happened is that we got an email from an officer saying we have a couple who needs housing ASAP tonight, basically. And can the mutual aid network pay for a motel room going forward? And so we're very new to the mutual aid network. I honestly did not feel comfortable at being asked this by the Bloomington Police Department. And so I sent an email to the mayor and I said, I feel very uncomfortable with this request. Basically, from what I gather, this is someone who's been underneath the care of the Bloomington Police Department, whatever that means, like someone who's in the Bloomington Police Department's charge for a while, and now they're reaching out to a volunteer mutual aid network saying that they need housing ASAP. And he said, clearly don't have any resources to deal with this situation. And in the end, we took care of that person. I'm very glad, of course, that we took care of that person, but that really drives home to me the point at how this is not what the Bloomington Police Department or any police department is supposed to be doing. And this is not something
Hey, Ms. Ang?
Oh.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I hate to be rude. I don't want to appear rude. But we want to let everyone have a chance to speak. And so we're limiting folks to one until everyone is spoken. So I still thank you. No, you're fine. I thank you for your comments. But we want to make sure we have a chance to hear from everyone in the time that we have. So thank you again for your comment.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Next up, we've got Lisa N. Again, apologies if your screen name's not your actual name, but you should be unmuted and ready to go.
Oh, that's okay. My name is Liza Norden. A lot of what I'm saying, again, is going to be echoing what's already been said. I would like to see our police department defunded and see those funds reallocated to community services that will actually serve our community. I also want to touch on what's been said about working with ICE. I would like for our sheriff's department to stop working with ICE because as of right now, Sheriff Brad Swain does voluntarily work with ICE. And I would also like to see the Bearcat sold and those funds reallocated, as well as seeing Joseph Smedley's case reopened. And I also want to touch on the need for greater housing availability for our houseless neighbors. Just today, I saw the Shalom Center posted publicly about how they have money to pay for rent for many of their clients, but they are not able to get anyone to rent to them, even though they have the money to pay for the rent. So we need to be doing more to give our houseless neighbors homes, and we don't need our police department to be spending their time harassing our houseless neighbors, which is most of what I've seen our police department do in my entire life of living in Bloomington. So again, I would just like to see our police department defunded and ultimately abolished. And I think what people have said about community mutual aid networks as a replacement is really important, and also funding our social services. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Norden. Appreciate your comments. Do we have anyone else, Mr. Lucas?
Yes, we have another dual user of computers. Christopher Simanton, I believe, should be unmuted and ready to go.
Hi, thank you. My name is Christopher Simanton. Yeah, and I have lived in Bloomington my entire life. I was born here. I would like to echo all of the sentiments from everyone that has spoken so far to defund the police, reallocate those funds to community services, sell the Bearcat, reallocate those funds. I would also like to comment, as someone who's lived here and gone through the public school system, that I made it all the way until college before I had a professor of color teaching at an academic setting. So I went through all of grade school, middle school, and high school without a single teacher of color. And I believe that we need to support getting Black teachers and teachers of color into our local school system and see what we can do to promote that advocacy. And that is what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simonton. Did you understand, there was a question you had in chat, did you understand how I explained you can send that to the council office or individual council people?
Yes,
Okay.
I connected my partner's email with that council person. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
So next up, it's an email address, milohick@iu.edu. You should be unmuted and ready to go.
Hi, thank you. My name is Milo Hicks, and I would like to thank you all for listening today. I would like to voice my support for what has been said regarding calls to seriously rethink the structure and purpose of policing in our city, and to consider defunding and abolishing the police and reinvesting in our community, starting by selling the Bearcat. I also urge you to listen to Black Lives Matter Bloomington and other Black voices to put pressure on the relevant parties to reopen the Joseph Smedley case and to privatize the city market. But specifically, I would like to comment on the ICE holds in the city, following up on a February 11th meeting between the City Council and the Immigration Justice Task Force concerning requests for information from Monroe County Sheriff's Brad Swain about specific connections between the Sheriff's Office and ICE. The county sheriff should not be helping ICE to identify and apprehend people who are suspected of a possible civil infraction. Councillor Kate Wiltz mentioned the possibility of the county council adopting a resolution on ICE policies if the rest of the council was interested. And I urge you to reopen this conversation with her and your fellow council members. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Hicks.
Okay, next up, or still wishing to comment, we've got Merck, who should have the ability to unmute themselves and is ready to go.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, can you identify yourself, please?
Hey there, my name is Mercury. I've lived in Bloomington for 10 years and just want to echo a lot of everything else that has been said. Specifically that I've been to some of these meetings before, and like Macy said, feel like overwhelming community response like we're seeing today has been ignored by council in the past. So I would like to wishfully think that maybe things will be different this time. I would like to echo support for defunding the police, cutting funding to the police, and releasing like a time-specific like timeline for total abolition. I think we need to immediately stop working with ICE. I think police should reopen the Joseph Smedley case, and yeah, I would also urge y'all to seriously think about what crime means in this community and what you want it to mean, because right now police deal with maybe 5% of their caseload is violent crime. And so I think we need to address the 95% of what they are doing, like with nonviolent offenses, and think about like whether that should really be considered crime, and working towards prevention and supplying people with what they need instead of punishing people for not having money, because that's, I think, the majority of what crime boils down to. Or yeah, just healing communities and interpersonal problems. And I think those two things could solve most of what the police deal with. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercury. Appreciate your comments.
Not seen many new folks join the meeting, but if there are any people left that would like to speak and haven't done so already, let us know by sending us a chat message to the meeting host or by using the raise hand option, which you can find by clicking participants at the bottom of your screen. And I'll note just for the committee chair that we've got about 25 minutes left in the meeting.
Yes.
Feels like we're winding down on public commenters, and I don't know if the committee wants to save some time for them to make for the members to make a comment as well. And I'm getting some messages over chat. Oh, and we do have another request to speak. And for any folks that have already commented, you're welcome to send a message or more thoughts over chat. We'll save the chat from this meeting. You're welcome to email the council at the council office or send in your comments however is most convenient for you. But next up, we've got C. Berry, who should be unmuted and ready to go.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you give us your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Jack. I just want to echo what many people have already been saying. I think it's really critical that we move to defund and ultimately abolish the police. They don't keep us safe, least of all Black people in our community. as some people have cited, the percentage of Black people who are incarcerated and in jail is way disproportionate to the percentage of Black people who live in our city. So that should be a huge red flag on its own. I also want to echo what Mercury was just saying about the ways in which the way that police functions criminalizes poverty and criminalizes people who are really just trying to survive in a system really stacked against them. And also want to bring up something someone else mentioned before, which is that police.
Are you there? Can you hear us?
Sounds like she might have had some audio issues. If she's able to reconnect and would like to finish her comment, looks like she had about a minute left. So
yes, thank you.
If there are any other folks that would like to make a comment, you can indicate that now, and we can circle back. And I see she's rejoining the meeting, so let me. Hi, are you there?
Yeah, my internet cut out, sorry. I just got it back.
You have about a minute or so left, so please continue. Thank you for rejoining us.
Thanks. I'm not sure exactly where it cut out, but I just wanted to echo the point someone brought up already, which is that the police are directly or originated as patrols to capture enslaved people who are escaping. And I want us to really reflect on that history and whether that's something that could ever be reformed. I think the clear answer is it can't. I also want to echo people who have said that we need to stop collaborating with ICE, that we must reopen the Joseph Smedley case, which, as Macy mentioned, was not a suicide, as all evidence indicates. I think we need to sell the Bearcat and reallocate those funds. I guess that's about it.
Thank you for your comments, and thanks for coming back.
I've gotten a chat message from Cassidy Keeley, who wants to request future meetings where discussions can be held rather than simply comments received, and would like to hear responses to some of the questions and suggestions that folks have made. For folks who weren't in the meeting at the beginning, committee member Sims mentioned that there may be future meetings scheduled. There's nothing definitive yet, but council members are looking to hold future meetings where back and forth discussion or dialogue may be possible. I think the intent of this meeting was simply to hear from the public, hear what folks had to say, and go from there. Also, I've received a few comments about folks not being able to send chats between each other. That's simply one of the security measures we've got in place for our Zoom meetings. We've had recent issues with some bad actors on Zoom meetings, so apologies for not having that functionality available. So if there's anybody else that would like to make a comment, we're nearing the end of the meeting. You can indicate that you'd like to speak by using chat or by using the raise hand feature.
Okay, Mr. Lucas, if it's okay with our committee members, we're nearing the end of it, and I think I'd like to start with final comments from my committee members. And with the time we have left, if we have any more public who would like to make a comment before the end of the meeting, I think we can work through that. Does that sound okay with committee members? Okay. Who would like to start with final comments, if any? Councilmember Sandberg.
Thank you. I would just like to thank you, Councilmember Sims, for your facilitation and also for our administrator, for doing such a great job of managing these meetings. As was stated in the beginning, this is not a hearing. This is a listening session. We're grateful for all who have come in tonight to speak your piece. We've gotten a lot of good information. I've taken a lot of good notes, but I need to absorb this information, and there are a lot more people I need to communicate with before I think any of us are ready to have any kind of a back and forth forum. But this is, as Chairman Sim said, a good first step, and we're grateful for everybody who spent their evening with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Scambolari.
Yes, thank you. I am grateful every day that I live here. And I am grateful for the comments I've heard tonight and for the passion and the commitment that I have heard tonight. And I just want to share a couple thoughts on what I've taken away. Before I do that, I want to spend about 10 seconds addressing the individual or individuals who disrupted Tuesday night's meeting and who may have tried to disrupt this one. This meeting had 80 people in it. You didn't win, and you're not going to. So now that's the last attention I plan to give to them. First things first, Black Lives Matter, full stop. So too do Black voices, Black dreams, Black goals, Black ideas, Black experiences. I want you to know I am listening to you and I believe you. Thank you for helping me to see this world and these issues to the extent that I can through your eyes. George Floyd's death is a tragedy and is a clear example of the profound injustices that so many Black and brown people have experienced. And we've talked about that tonight. I've recognized some names on the screen and I've corresponded with some of you. And in some of those emails I shared with you that among the most poignant moments in the Enough is Enough protest and in the things that have been happening was a woman I saw kneeling alone all by herself near the county courthouse, holding a sign that said, "I am not Black, but I see you. I hear you, I mourn with you, and I will fight for you." Equally poignant was a comment by Councilmember Sims when he spoke at that, and he said, "You know, I've seen these protests for many, many, many years. This one feels different." I think it is, and I am eager to be a part of that. I want people to know that I have heard a lot of what you've said about the critical need to respond to poverty and particularly housing issues in our city. I've heard the concern about those who are wrestling with addiction and substance use disorders and those who are struggling with mental illness and how we respond to that and the need to look at these root causes. I have heard the need to revisit the budget for Bloomington Police and to be open to more fundamental, perhaps structural changes that will serve this community better. Several of you have commented about clarity around the training received by officers. I would agree with that. I would also be interested in further educating myself and having clarity around disciplinary procedures and how they work. And what happens when someone does have a negative experience with police and how that actually gets carried through a process. I have also heard a good deal about the Joseph Smedley case, and I look forward to pursuing that further. In her comments, Debra Morrow made the observation that Bloomington is a work in progress. I think you're right. I think it is, and I think we've got work to do. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name, Mr. Nathan Muchler, you also spoke about the critical need to make changes now rather than to wait until something goes horribly, horribly wrong. And I want you to know I heard that and I appreciate it. And again, forgive me if I mispronounced your name, and thank you for letting me paraphrase you. I also want to acknowledge Randy Paul and his comment that individuals are all encouraged to run for office. In the end, it is ordinary people who change the world. And I won't speak for my fellow council members, but I'm guessing that most of us would always be willing to talk with people about the experience of running for office and how it can make a difference. Beyond that, I am grateful. Again, thank you for the opportunity to hear your voices tonight. I look forward to your written comments in the coming days as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Scambolari. Before we go to Councilmember Piedmont Smith. Our host has indicated we have 2 more people. So I beg her indulgence before we get to her and then myself. Are our public people want to come in available?
Yes. S. Barbash Riley, I believe, has a second person using that computer, and it should be unmuted and ready to comment on their end.
Thank you for your comments if you're ready.
Oh, sorry, just getting a chat that he's stepped away from the computer. So apologies for not being more timely.
Okay.
We do have a request from Libby, who should also be ready to comment.
I'm here if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Libby, how are you? You have about 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
My name is Olivia Ball, and I've been in Bloomington for about 10 years. I run a shop in downtown Bloomington. There's nothing I can add that hasn't already been said, but I stand in favor of defunding the police, cutting ties with ICE, reopening the Joseph Smedley case, and the other points made by the other speakers here today. As a community member and a survivor of domestic violence, I would like to mention that I have been failed multiple times by police in regards to the domestic violence I suffered at the hands of my abuser. In one case, I was told that the force would not send officers out to escort me safely to my previous residence in order to collect the belongings I left when I fled. I was told I needed to abandon all of my belongings because the officers would not put themselves in danger by entering the home of my abuser. In another case, I was told that if I filed a restraining order, that I would essentially be supplying my abuser with my current address. I decided I was safer without it. The only thing the police are designed to serve and protect is white supremacy, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for your comments. Mr. Lucas, do we have anyone else on standby? Okay, thank you. All right, Councilmember Piedmont. Well, I think we have one more. Sorry.
Israel should be unmuted and ready to comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead, Mr. Horton. You have about 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Israel Horton. Again, most of the things I would like to say have already been said many times by people who are perhaps more eloquent than me. But I would like to echo what was just said about police and the police force's role as a tool of both white supremacy and capitalism. So I have been lucky enough to have never had a serious encounter with the police, but I have had many people close to me in my life who have had encounters with them, and I have never once heard a single positive story from that. The only things that it seems that police are here to do is basically serve the interests of rich white people. And I think that's not a coincidence. It's a baked in part of America's power system. So I think we need to defund and abolish that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Mr. Horton. Okay, we're nearing, I think we can go to Councilmember Isabel Piedmont Smith. Are you ready for your final comments?
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, as you said, Councilmember Sims, the main purpose tonight was to hear from members of the public. So I want to make sure everyone who wants to speak can speak. So I don't know that I have so many thoughts going through my head. Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. You know, if we said all the names of people who've been killed through police brutality and racism, we would be here for many, many days. It's very upsetting to me as an American and as somebody who has been elected to serve my community that there's so much pain, that there's so much injustice. I was especially touched by the person this evening who said, or I think there were at least 2 people who said that they have been frustrated in the past at meetings like this, where it's not a back and forth, where they just make their statement and then they feel like there's no follow-up, like nobody's been listening to them, like they've been talking to a brick wall. I'm here to tell you we are not a brick wall. I am really literally shaking right now, and what Olivia said really hit me hard. And it's, you know, really all of the emails and input I have received in the last few weeks have hit home with me. I have absorbed those. They have come in to me, and I mean, it's like, the term woke, you know, is thrown around, and I thought I was woke, but I wasn't woke, and I'm still trying to get there. But I feel like I've learned so much from members of the community just in the last few weeks, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate everybody who has emailed. You know, we've gotten over 400 emails from people, and a lot of them are form letters, but there are quite a few that people have really taken time to add their own stories and to give us reading lists and say, hey, look at this study and look at what this community has done. And I really do appreciate that. I was planning vacation next week. I think I'm going to be doing a lot of reading and not novels. So I appreciate what you all have said. And I personally, this is not the end of it. And I don't think any council members think, you know, we're just going to listen and not do anything. But I can only speak for myself. I plan to do something. I think there is a systemic problem with the police. I think that we need to really start the process of rethinking policing, and not just rethinking it, but changing it, dismantling it as it has been for centuries in this country. Because as so many have said, it has been a tool for white supremacy. That doesn't mean I think that police are white supremacists at all, but I think it's a system that has increasingly become, weaponized. That it's as somebody said very well, and I'm not going to be able to find it now, but it's confrontational rather than collaborative. And I think the root problems that lead to crime and conflict between people cannot be solved by, armed police. So we really need to look at taking many of the calls that police get and redirecting those to community organizations who are better trained, better equipped, and just come from a different mindset to help people in the community. So anyway, those are just my initial thoughts. I'm going to keep reading and listening and thinking about it throughout this summer. And of course, please don't go away at budget time when we have our budget hearings in August, because hopefully we'll be able to make change, but we'll need your support to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Piedmont-Smith. Mr. Lucas, before we do a final comment with myself, do we have anyone waiting from the public?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Lucas, Ms. Sophia McDowell, our staff that are here, our timer, President Boland, did a wonderful job this evening. And my fellow standing committee members. Now, I've heard a lot this evening, and I want everyone to know, first of all, we've heard a lot, and we may not have changes that can be made in the next 2 or 3 days. I please don't want anyone to think that because nothing happens that soon, and trust me, things will take a little time, that we are in fact a brick wall and not doing anything to listen or affect change. One of the things that I've done this evening, and this is more for, just so everyone understands. These are 9 sheets of notes that I've taken this evening. I take this very, very seriously. Much of what I've heard tonight, I can relate to. I think many of us know that. I've not always been a city council person. I've not always, been in the position that I'm in. And that really doesn't matter from a social standpoint. And I want everyone to understand that. I'm about accountability. I think that's where we're looking at. There has to be, or there will be, a critical mass of the population. That's why this movement feels different. We've heard it all before, but I think we're approaching a critical mass that can affect some changes. One or two of us wanting change is kind of ineffective, but having a critical mass of numbers and with some ideas on some of the things we can do, I think is most effective. Policing is what we were talking about tonight. In fact, our local policing. I've said this before, our problems are systemic. They're institutionalized, historically systemic racist practices. That is the disease. Many of the things that we talked about tonight, or we received information, are what I consider to be symptoms of that disease. The housing shortage, some socioeconomics, the history of policing itself, those type of things. There are many other issues that we've heard that we will talk about, we will consider. I make no promises tonight other than that we heard you. We will deliberate with that. I look forward to having more community conversations, maybe in a situation where we could have robust conversation and back and forth, maybe a little Q&A. But I think it's critical that we get information. Early on in most processes over the years, I've found that having questions and answers in a situation like this aren't very effective because it's hard for us to have the answers that many of the people are looking for. And if I can't answer it, then there's that perception that, well, he don't care, or he don't know, or why am I talking? So that's one reason as chair tonight, I was very hesitant to go that route. I think it's imperative to hear from our people or from our community, and so we can digest it, how it affects us, and then how we can relate to not only our other council members, but to other members in this community, members of the administration, members of and the leadership at BPD. I think that is the mark or the goal of what we're starting here tonight. I look forward to having more of these, and I think they will grow to where they could be more encompassing as we move forward. So there was approximately 80 participants tonight or so. And by my count, and of course it may not be very accurate, half of those made comments. I like that percentage. Wish we could have had more, but I think that's pretty effective. So I'm looking forward to more of those. I want to thank everyone that participated tonight. And I also want to thank those that made a comment. And other than that, I'm just looking forward to the next time. I do not have anything else. Fellow council members, do we have anything else that we'd like to say this evening? Yes, Council Member Scambler.
Thank you. I just want to mention too that for those who may not know, there is another meeting coming up sponsored by county government. I think on Tuesday, June 30th, whatever day June 30th is. I just exchanged messages with a county council colleague, and my understanding is that it is at 6 p.m. and will be in a webinar format. I've checked the website and there are no more details, but please be watching the county website for more details on the meeting they plan to have.
Thank you. I'm also fortunate that we have our council parliamentarian with us. So is it proper that I ask for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. I think by acclamation, we don't have to take a vote. I think This meeting is now adjourned, and I want to thank everyone for participating. Looking forward to the next time. And remember, we all have individual email accounts. We have a council office, and we look forward to hearing from you constructive information. Thank you all and have a great night. Thank you.